My sister got an 80K Mercedes. I got a 50 gift card. Don't miss what happened next. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over our suburban street. It was the day everyone had been waiting for, my sister's 16th birthday. The smell of sizzling burgers filled the air as family and friends crowded our front yard. Laughter echoed against the backdrop of balloons and streamers. But amidst the celebration, I stood there, feeling like an outsider. Jill got a brand new, shiny, luxurious 80,000 Mercedes, while all I had was a flimsy 50 gift card to some store that didn't even sell anything I wanted. The world seemed to tilt. How could life be so unfair? The moment they revealed the car, my heart raced with disbelief. You should have seen the look on my sister's face, pure joy, like she'd just won the lottery. Everyone cheered, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I wanted to smile, to be happy for her, but it was like a cold shadow had descended over me. Get over it, I muttered under my breath, but the bitterness clung to me. With every cheer, I felt more like a ghost haunting my own party, but here's the crazy part. There was more than just jealousy brewing beneath the surface. Right after the car reveal, something strange happened. A flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned and, for just a split second, I thought I saw something dark behind the oak tree in our yard. My heart skipped. Was it a cat? A raccoon? Or was it something darker lurking in the twilight? A chill ran down my spine. Everyone around me was wrapped up in excitement, blissfully unaware of the unsettling presence that had rattled me. I took a deep breath, trying to shake it off. But what if? What if it wasn't a trick of the light, but something real, something sinister? I could almost hear whispered secrets in the wind, hints of trouble on the edge of our blissful suburban lives. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I managed to shake off my nerves, at least for a moment. But when I looked back at the tree, my heart sank. Something dark and scaly slipped from view, leaving me breathless. What had I just seen? My sister, oblivious, was revving the engine of her new Mercedes, and the crowd erupted into cheers, drowning out my racing thoughts. I hesitated, unsure if I wanted to dive back into the festivity or investigate further. Could there be a danger lurking so close to our golden moment? As the sun faded and shadows crept in, I felt my curiosity pulling me towards the tree. The laughter of my family faded away, replaced by a restless gnawing in my gut. The last rays of sunlight seemed to dance just out of reach, taunting me. What had I stumbled upon? Or was it all just in my head? The mystery lingered like a heavy fog, urging me to get closer, to uncover whatever had just stirred in the darkness. My heart hammered in my chest as I approached the oak tree. The cheerful sounds of the party faded, and a thick silence wrapped around me. I took a cautious step forward. The grass crunched underfoot, a harsh sound contrasting the festive atmosphere in the distance. I peered into the dimness beneath the sprawling branches, the shadows swallowing the last streaks of daylight. Just a trick of the light, I whispered, trying to convince myself. But deep down, dread pulsed through me. What if it wasn't he? What if that thing I saw was real? I leaned closer, squinting into the darkness, searching for signs of life or something else. A rustle interrupted my thoughts, jagged and sharp, like nails scraping against wood. I froze, my breath hitching. The world stood still. The distant cheers seemed to ignite a fierce determination inside me. I had to know. As I stepped into the gloom, the smell of damp earth filled my nostrils. It felt alive, thrumming with unseen energy. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of movement. Something slithered. I recoiled instinctively, but my curiosity tethered me to my spot. A small figure darted. It couldn't just be a memory of that flash I saw earlier. It moved again, revealing more of its form. I squinted, trying to piece together what lurked in the shadows. When I heard a whisper. Help me, my heart dropped. The voice was frail and desperate. I could barely make out the shape now, huddled close to the tree's roots. Is someone there? I called out, anxiety lacing my words. Maybe this was just a prank, a kid hiding and hoping to jump out and scare me. But the tone of that voice sent chills down my spine. Silence hung thick in the air, and I stood frozen in that moment, straining my ears. I felt exposed, the cool twilight creeping around me, a cautious spectator to whatever unfolded. My skin prickled, electric with uncertainty. Please, it whimpered again, laced with desperation. I stepped forward, adrenaline pumping. My curiosity battled with fear, an unholy alliance forcing me to move despite myself. Where are you? I called, pushing the words into the dark. Show yourself. Time seemed to stretch. And then I saw it. A small, fragile creature, its skin glistening like wet stone. It was not human, not entirely. My breath hitched again, a gasp lodged in my throat. This was no mere prank. The creature looked up, its eyes reflecting an uncanny mix of sorrow and intensity, beckoning me with its gaze. What are you? I whispered, half in awe, half in terror. The air buzzed with tension. Behind me, laughter erupted once more, a cruel reminder of normalcy I felt so far removed from. I glanced back at the party, at my sister basking in the glow of her birthday, oblivious to the dark mystery unfurling right in her backyard. Trust me, the creature begged, the words wrapping around me like a chilling fog. Before I could respond, the ground trembled slightly, a low rumble that seemed to resonate from deep within the earth, shaking my very core. And then I heard it, a loud crack, echoing across the night, sending shivers down my spine. Instinctively, I turned to the party, but everyone was too wrapped up in their celebrations to notice the danger inching closer. What was happening? I looked back at the creature, but it was gone, vanished into the shadows, just as the rumble grew louder, shaking the very foundation of our suburban oasis. What had I unleashed? I needed answers, and time was running out. Would I dare venture deeper into the night, or turn back and ignore the warnings pulsing around me? Decisions loomed heavy as the darkness closed in, leaving me with only one burning question: what was coming for us? The ground shook again, more violently this time, sending a jolt through my body. I staggered, the world around me spinning momentarily. I braced myself against the old oak, my heart pounding louder than the distant music. The people at the party remained oblivious, laughing and clinking glasses, while I faced the unknown alone. Someone else got to help. I yelled towards the flickering lights, fingers tight against the bark, my knuckles white. But no one turned. I was on my own. Anxiety twisted in my gut, coiling like a snake. Backing away might have been a choice, but it felt like surrender. I thought of my sister, her laughter ringing in my ears. Was she safe? Or was she caught in whatever brew of darkness stirred beneath the surface? The silence was oppressive. I shoved back my fear, pulled my phone from my pocket, and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the dimness, revealing the area near the roots where the creature had been. Grass lay trampled, but now there was nothing, just more shadows. Come back. My voice cracked as I scanned the area frantically. I had to find it, had to know what it wanted from me. Another tremor rocked the ground, this one dragging a low, echoing growl that seemed to rise from the depths of the earth itself. My skin crawled, the air thick with anticipation and fear. I pointed the light deeper into the darkness. What was I expecting to find? Suddenly, there it was again. Quick movements, darting deeper into the brush. I plunged forward, the beam of my flashlight flicking back and forth like a metronome, heart racing with each breath I took. There, beneath the twisted root, I saw the glimmer of wet skin and those piercing eyes. Wait! I gasped, panting now, adrenaline surging through my veins. I want to help. It emerged slightly, just enough for me to see its frail form. The darkness it stirs, it whispered hoarsely, its voice trembling. You must listen, it's awakening, awakening? Panic clawed at my throat. A shiver ran through me, the weight of something ancient and powerful resting just beneath the surface of reality. What do you mean? I asked, taking a step closer, reaching out to it. What do I need to do? The creature recoiled into the shadows, its expression a mask of pain. You must have blast echoed through the night, sharp and deafening, and I dropped my phone, the light flickering out. It felt like a gunshot, jarring and unnatural, pulling my heart into my throat. My breath quickened, sensing the shift in the air, the gathering storm of something malevolent. Go! The voice shrieked from the darkness. It's coming. I stumbled backward, fear slamming into me like a freight train. I could hear the laughter from the party, growing distant, like a lie eroding away. My sister, my family, none of them understood the danger closing in, the darkness that encroached on our lives, creeping like an unwelcome shadow. With a sudden burst of instinct, I turned and ran, tearing away from the tree, back toward the inviting glow of the party. Each step felt heavy, echoing the chaos clawing at my mind. But in my gut, I knew something had been unleashed, and it was hungry. The shrill laughter faltered as I burst back into the clearing, but the partygoers seemed to melt away, their faces shifting, morphing in the light like reflections in a broken mirror. I stumbled, heart pounding, as a shadow lurked behind me, clawing at the edges of the dimming light. I couldn't let it have her. Not my sister. Just as I turned to confront the darkness, a figure stepped from the shadows, silhouetted against the flickering lights. My breath caught in my throat. Did you find it? Asked a familiar voice, low and smooth, sending a fresh wave of dread crashing over me. It was Jason, my sister's best friend. But something was off. The gleam in his eyes felt unnatural, charged with something sinister. What is happening? I demanded, pulse racing, every instinct screaming for me to run. I had to know the truth. But would discovering it bring salvation or damnation? Before Jason could respond, the ground jolted again, and the night seemed to sigh, as if holding its breath. What exactly was lurking just below, and how was it tied to him? I felt the weight of his gaze, cold and heavy. And that destructive force was still coming. Jason. My voice wavered, a plea drowning in unease. What do you know? He stepped closer, eyes locked onto mine, glimmering with an eerie intensity that unsettled my stomach. You really shouldn't get involved in things you don't understand, he said, his voice smooth yet laced with a hint of venom. Before I could answer, another tremor shook the ground. My heart raced as I felt dread wash over me like a cold tide. The music from the party faded, replaced by an unsettling silence that enveloped us both. I scanned the dimly lit clearing, searching for any sign of my sister, but all I found was an oppressive darkness curling around the edges of the glow. What's in the darkness? I pressed, stepping back. The air felt thick, oppressive, as if the very atmosphere conspired against me. A memory flickered inside my mind, my sister's laughter, carefree and booming. Jason smirked, the corner of his mouth twitching up in a way that made my skin crawl. You don't want to know. Trust me, some things should stay buried. Buried. The word echoed in my mind like a death knell. Could it be? Is this about the creature? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Something shifted behind Jason, a shadow coiling and expanding, hungry and menacing. The panic was palpable, gnawing at my insides like a wild animal. Where is my sister? I choked out. Do you really think she is safe? He replied, eyes flashing in the dark. You're too late. The awakening is upon us. A chill plunged down to the core of my being. I backed away slowly, the creature in the woods flickering through my thoughts. Had it been right? Was something ancient stirring, trapped against the cracks of our reality, craving freedom? Get away from me, Jason. What have you done? I shouted, anger mixing with my fear, pushing me to confront him. But he laughed, a dark melody that sent shivers down my spine. We all have our roles to play, he said, stepping forward, forcing me back into the thickening shadows. And you've been chosen. Before I could respond, the ground trembled again, but this time, a cracking roar erupted, tearing through the night like thunder, a sound so powerful it felt like my bones were vibrating. The party lights flickered, and I caught glimpses of terrified faces, but they seemed so far away. I realized in that moment, they were blind to the horror that lurked just outside the perimeter of the celebration. Run! I screamed, turning on my heels as the roar grew closer, the dark figure shifting restlessly behind me. I dashed back toward the flickering lights, desperation flooding my senses. My sister had to be somewhere in that chaos. Fingers grasped the air, reaching for the familiar warmth of her presence. I could hear Jason shouting now, his voice fading into the frenzy, coaxing the shadows to rise and surround me. With every frantic step, I visualized her safe, back home, laughter echoing through the halls, but that image shattered as I glanced back. The shadowy figure emerged, a mass of twisting dark edges, looming ever closer. Help! My voice strained under the weight of my fear as I breached the light once more, but even the party seemed oblivious to my unraveling world. The laughter now sounded hollow, almost mocking. Just a game, I could hear the whispers, undulating through the crowd like a breeze, but the words felt more sinister under the surface. Then I spotted her dot eye in the corner of the illumination. There she was, my sister, laughing and spinning in circles. But as I moved closer, her laughter morphed into something hollow, her face distorting in disbelief. "Annie," I called out, rushing toward her, but the world tilted again, blackness curling at the corners of my vision. Jason's laughter followed me, reaching for me like a claw. "The darkness needs you both, Annie. Now join it." Frozen, I felt the gravity of his words. Would I choose to confront this force, or abandon my sister to face it alone? The air felt charged as I fought against my fear, knowing I had only moments to decide. The shadows behind me crept closer, hungry for a taste of what they had lost. What would I give up to save her? And what price would we pay for light in this encroaching darkness? "Annie, come here," I shouted, but my voice wavered in the cacophony of confusion. The laughter of my sister seemed hollow, mingling with the panic-stricken murmurs surrounding me. It felt surreal, as if I was trapped in a nightmare where reality was slipping through my fingers. She turned to me, eyes wide and unseeing, her smile frozen under the weight of something darker that hovered just beyond our sight. I reached for her, every instinct screaming to pull her close. The pulsing darkness behind me was alive, an entity seeking something hidden deep within its void. "Annie," I cried again, desperation clawing at my throat. As I stumbled forward, the ground shook violently beneath me, a heartbeat of the looming terror. I could feel it pressing against my back, cold and insistent, whispering promises of what it could reveal. "What have you done?" I gasped, forcing the words past my clenched teeth as I neared my sister. "We need to leave." Her eyes glazed. A flicker of recognition passed over her features, but then it was gone, leaving only a glazed void. "It's fun, Annie. We're playing," she replied cheerfully, spinning in the circle of chaos, as if oblivious to the shadows creeping ever closer. A chill swept through me. This wasn't her, this was a puppet caught in the strings of something sinister. I stumbled, my dread physical as if the air itself thickened, wrapping around my throat. "No," I barked, confusion morphing into rage. "This isn't a game." With a determination I didn't know I possessed, I lunged toward her, grabbing her wrist. The moment our skin touched, I felt a jolt, like electricity pulsing through the air. I yanked her toward me, but as I pulled her away, a wave of darkness surged, crashing against us like icy water. "Jason!" I screamed, as if he could somehow save us from the encroaching abyss. The laughter from the party faded completely, replaced by a dreadful quiet that enveloped everything. In that precious silence, I felt a sudden shift of presence, dark and swirling, moving behind me. I turned just in time to see a silhouette emerge, darker than the night itself. The creature loomed, twisting and writhing, hungry eyes glinting with malice. Fear stabbed through me as I tightened my grip on Annie. Behind that fear, a flicker of resolve sparked. I couldn't let this thing win. "Annie, listen to me," I shouted, panic fueling my voice. "We need to get away from here. This isn't just a party. Something is attacking us." Finally, a flicker of recognition sparked in her expression. "But I want to stay." Her voice trembled, but I could see beneath her surface there was still a part of her fighting, desperately clawing to break free. "Annie." I pulled harder, feeling the darkness push against me, a suffocating weight threatening to pull us both in. "Fight it, please." As the creature manifested further, the ground shuddered beneath our feet, causing waves of unease to ripple through the air. Shadows reached out like grasping hands, but I refused to let go. I won't leave you. We're in this together. With those words, I took a step back from the void, refusing to succumb to its grasp. The shadows hesitated, and my sister's clarity returned momentarily. Her eyes narrowed, and for a heartbeat, she was fully there, clutching my arm as if pinning me aboard a sinking ship. "Okay, let us go," she murmured, but just as we turned to run, that dreadful roar propelled itself once more, echoing ominously within the dark. It was too late. We had barely taken 2 steps forward when the darkness erupted around us, swallowing the light whole. The roar morphed into a howl, and in an instant, we were plunged into a realm of chaos and fright. "And make it stop," Annie screamed, panic-filled. And, just like that, I understood in my very bones the choice I had to make. I couldn't fight it alone. There was only one way to navigate through this hell. I needed to confront Jason, but would the price of that confrontation be too high? The shadows began to close in, and dread seeped into my veins as I whispered, "This can't be how this ends." Determined, I pulled Annie close. The darkness boiled, ready to consume us. If Jason had awakened this thing, perhaps he held the key to putting it back to sleep, or sealing our fate forever. Did I have the strength to face him? Would confronting Jason illuminate our path or thrust us deeper into despair? The darkness closed in, an unbearable weight pressing against my chest. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, a promise that something vicious and unseen was just moments away from devouring us whole. I gripped Annie's wrist tightly, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath my fingers, grounding me when the tide of fear threatened to drown my thoughts. "Annie," I said, forcing the words out through a throat tight with fear. "Jason, he's our only chance." I dared a glance at the swirling shadows, their restless shifting clawing at the edges of my vision. This thing wanted us, but I had to fight for her. I had to brace myself for what lay ahead. Annie's gaze flickered, a spark of clarity flaring in her eyes before slipping away again. "But what if he's the reason we're in this mess?" Her voice trembled, uncertainty creasing her brow, and I saw in her expression a mirror of my own fears. "It doesn't matter," I insisted, urgency flooding my words. "I can't lose you to this dark thing, Annie. I can't leave you." The shadows surged forward, and I instinctively stepped in front of her. They twisted in a sprawl of grotesque shapes, as if dancing to a sinister orchestra playing just for us. I felt the tendrils brush against my back, cold and clawing, as I turned and half-dragged my sister backward. "Stay close. Whatever happens, I won't let go." My voice hitched with the weight of my promise, echoing through the hollow silence that hung over us, broken only by the distant, haunting howl. Just as we began to edge away, a flash of light caught my eye, a single, flickering bulb hanging overhead, barely illuminating the narrow pathway before us. It felt like a beacon amid the chaos, nudging me forward, urging me to trust in one last chance. "Annie, we're going to run towards that light, okay? On 3. I counted down with a shaky breath, locking eyes with her, hoping the spark of hope in our hearts could shine through the darkness. 1, 2, 3. I yanked her toward the light, our bodies propelling forward, heartbeats racing like thunder in the silence. But as we breached the threshold that should have led us to safety, we were met instead by a guttural roar that split the air, baring its fangs in a violent welcome. Everything slowed. The world seemed to exhale, and in that breath, something jolted within me, a realization that clawed at the surface. Jason. He stood just beyond the reach of the shifting shadows, a figure almost glowing with an unsettling brightness. His expression was twisted into something I couldn't comprehend. Fear? Guilt? "Not you," he shouted over the din, his voice breaking against the drums of the chaos surrounding us. "You shouldn't have come here." My stomach sank. "What do you mean? You brought this upon us, didn't you?" I shouted back, betrayal lacing my words. "What did you awaken?" He raised his hands, eyes wild, bordering on frenzied. "I didn't want it to happen. I thought it would be harmless." Anger surged through me, but it was overshadowed by the fragments of fear that enveloped us like a thick fog. "What is happening, Jason? What are we dealing with?" Before he could answer, the shadows lunged toward him, spurred by an unseen force. Jason stumbled backward, panic etched across his face. You after the rest of his sentence drowned in a cacophony of chaos. The darkness spiraled, claiming him. I pressed my teeth together, heart pounding as I dragged Annie forward. This was our chance. We had to escape Jason and this nightmare, but where would we go? Annie stood frozen, her pulse matching the frantic rhythm of the chaos that pressed against us. What if it gets us, too? She whispered, the veneer of bravery cracking. Gripping her tighter, I said, we'll fight. We have to believe we can outrun it. Our eyes lingered on the light again, glistening like hope amidst despair, as Jason's face faded into the darkness around him. But was the light truly salvation, or another trap waiting to ensnare us? Breathless and trembling, we sprinted towards it. Shadows lurched behind us, a relentless tide of darkness, and I couldn't stop the gnawing thought. Would we find freedom, or was this just the beginning of our descent into hell? We raced forward, hearts pounding in perfect sync with the chilling echoes of the darkness behind us. Each step felt like a defiance against the dread pulling at my thoughts, urging me to falter. Annie's grip tightened around my wrist, and I knew she mirrored my fear, yet we pushed on, propelled by the flickering bulb that felt miles away. The shadows clawed behind us, relentless and hungry. I could almost hear their snarls melding with the chilling air. There was a weight, a presence, as if the shadows themselves were alive, shifting and writhing, desperate to engulf us. I stole a glance back, and the sight turned my blood cold. They surged like a monstrous tide, hungry and fierce. Faster! I yelled, urging Annie to match my pace as I dragged her along. We have to get to the light. But doubt not at me. Jason was gone. What if he was the only one who could help us? What if that light was just another cruel trick? As if sensing my hesitation, a dark figure darted from the shadows, moving so swiftly that I barely caught its form, a shape, indistinct but ominous. Panic surged like ice through my veins. Annie, did you see that? I don't know. Just keep running. She was breathless, her voice mingling with the howling wind that whipped around us. We pressed on, the light shining brighter, almost palpable now, radiating optimism in an otherwise bleak abyss. But with every inch we gained, the shadows seemed to retaliate, stretching further, blotting out the light with their insatiable darkness. Then, something snagged my ankle, a tendril, quick and strong, pulling me back. I shouted, my neck snapping to face the writhing mass trying to drag me down. My heartbeat thudded like a war drum, and a surge of adrenaline propelled me forward, yanking my leg free just as I felt the cold caress of the dark. Annie, don't look back. I screamed, half sobbing, half shouting. Run! She bolted ahead, and I fought to follow, each step significant, fighting off the fear that clawed at my chest. Bursting into the glow of the light, we stumbled, nearly collapsing onto the ground, breaths mingling with desperation. But we weren't safe just yet. The shadows halted at the edge, writhing and twisting as if they couldn't breach the barrier of light. My pulse raced as I turned, catching sight of their leader, not Jason, but a dark silhouette that loomed larger than the others, seeming to pulsate with a sinister energy. It knows we're here, Annie breathed, her eyes wide and terrified. What is it? I whispered, the question curling like smoke in the air. The figure was a mass of shadow, almost humanoid, with eyes glowing like molten lava. It stared at us, hungry and insistent. This isn't just a storm. It feeds on fear, I realized, the chilling certainty settling like ice in my veins. It wants us to lose hope. We can't let it. Annie's hand trembled in mine. How do we fight something like this? Before I could answer, the figure moved, its shadows spilling forth like black ink, tendrils reaching toward us, igniting a desperate fight in me. We don't. I yelled, pulling Annie back as we ducked behind a low wall. We run toward another path. We fight with our escape. The grotesque shadows curled over the wall, and I felt myself go cold. This way. I pulled her toward a dimly lit side alley. The moments stretched, each exhale heavy with the weight of fate teetering on the edge of darkness. The shadows lunged again, threatening to pull us under, and we narrowly escaped their grasp. But then, a glint of metal caught my eye, the sharp edge of something jagged protruding from the wall. My heart raced, a reckless idea forming in my mind. Annie, if I can just— But the shadows swarmed around us, blocking the sunlight, a barrier of black closing in. Would it consume us before I could finish the plan? Would we ever carve our way out? The shadow figure lurked ever closer, a whisper of doom enveloping us both. And as despair threatened to sink its claws deeper, a thought flickered in my mind. What had Jason really awakened? The answer hung in the air like fog, heavy, pressing, and just as dark as the threat that loomed before us. Annie and I ducked into the alley, our breath rushing out in ragged gasps. The shadows loomed behind us, an endless sea of darkness pulsing with hunger. I could feel its chill wrapping around my throat like a noose, squeezing tighter with every thudding heartbeat. "Do you see anything?" Annie's voice quivered, nearly lost to the wind that howled through the narrow street. "Not yet," I managed, forcing myself to scan the shadowy expanse ahead. It felt like we were standing at the edge of oblivion, the weight of the world pressing down on us. I pulled her deeper into the alley, the cold stone biting into our skin. "Just keep moving." But then a low, mocking chuckle echoed around us, chilling my very core. I glanced back, my blood running cold at the sight of the shadow figure. It had slipped into the alley, its eyes dancing with malicious delight. It seemed to relish our fear, almost delighted by our desperate struggle for safety. "Run!" I screamed, yanking Annie along. This time, I didn't stop to look back. We sprinted into the mouth of the alley, feet pounding against the pavement. The shadows writhed and churned, slinking closer as we fled. "We can't keep this up," Annie gasped, her legs trembling from exhaustion. Each stride felt like a defiance against the dark, yet the weight of it pressed heavily at our backs, urging us to surrender. "We have to find a way out," I yelled back, but doubt not at my insides. What if there was no way out? What if we were trapped forever in this bleak nightmare? As we dashed into an opening, the alley widened, revealing a thin sliver of moonlight pouring in from above. It felt like a call from heaven, yet the shadows clawed hungrily at the edges. "Over there." I pointed to a metal door, half hidden under a tangle of vines. "We can hide in there." Annie didn't hesitate. We rushed toward the door, praying it wasn't just another trap. My fingers fumbled with the knob, adrenaline surging as I twisted it desperately. It creaked open, revealing a dim, dusty room filled with broken furniture and faded memories. We stumbled inside, the door slamming shut behind us. The sound echoed, a defiant act against the encroaching dark. Heart pounding, I fumbled for a way to barricade the door. There was a dilapidated table nearby. With a grunt, I shoved it against the door, feeling the vibrations of the shadows slamming against it from the other side. "Are we safe?" Annie whispered, eyes wild. "I don't know." I dropped to my knees beside her, gasping for breath. "But we have to stay quiet. We have to wait for them to go away." Moments stretched into eternity, each creak of wood and whisper of wind a reminder of our precarious position. The shadows continued to pound against the door, a relentless assault that made every nerve in my body scream with fear. Do you think they can get in?" Annie's voice quivered, eyes wide with terror. I shook my head, though my heart sank. "I don't know, but we need to think of something. We can't just sit here and wait to be found." Then, without warning, the shadows at the door began to retreat, a calm settling in the storm. I exchanged a glance with Annie, fear mingling with curiosity. What was happening? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the far corner of the room, making us jump. My heart raced again, and I shot a look at the source of the sound, a wall covered in images, flickering in the dim light. They were photos, a haphazard collage of faces, moments frozen in time. "What is this?" I whispered, stepping closer. Annie followed, her breath catching in her throat. Those are us." "What?" I turned, disbelief washing over me. The photos were us, but distorted, twisted by shadows that stretched and clawed at the edges like the darkness chasing us. A chill pricked at my skin as I felt something shift inside me. "What is this place?" I murmured. But just as realization began to dawn, the shadows outside the door swelled once more, and with a deep, Resonant growl. They launched at us. Get back, I yelled, throwing myself protectively over Annie just as the door splintered under the pressure. There was no choice left but to face whatever lay ahead. The real question blared in my mind. What was waiting for us on the other side? The door shattered inward with a ferocity that sent splinters flying. I pulled Annie down as shadows poured into the room, a melee of darkness swirling and writhing with a life of its own. My heart raced, pounding in my ears, drowning out everything else. We got to move, I shouted, pushing against the fear that threatened to swallow us whole. Annie scrambled to her feet, her eyes wide with panic. Where? There's nowhere to go. But the moment was slipping away. The shadows were relentless, their whispers rising like a cacophony of chaos. I frantically scanned the room, desperate for an escape route. My gaze landed on a small window at the far end, partially blocked by dusty boxes. Over there, I pointed, trying to sound braver than I felt. If we can get to that window, we might be able to climb out. The shadows surged again, closer this time, almost tangible. I could see the dark figures twisting, morphing into shapes that resembled lost souls, desperate yet angry. My breath hitched in my throat as they collided together, forming one dark mass that seemed almost sentient. Go! I shouted again, urgency fueling my voice. Annie hesitated, glancing back at the swirling shadows as if they were beckoning her with familiar, dark promises. But what if they get us? I cut her off, fear bubbling into anger. We don't have time for what-ifs. It's now or never. We dashed towards the window, the crashing shadows in hot pursuit. I could feel their icy breath trailing behind us, a chilling reminder of what awaited if we failed. I reached the boxes first, shoving them aside with a wild desperation. Help me, I cried, heart racing. Together, we managed to clear enough space to fit, but time was not on our side. With a determined push, I hoisted myself onto the ledge. The cool night air brushed against my skin, a fleeting comfort amidst the turmoil. I offered my hand to Annie, who was still staring at the oncoming tide of darkness. Annie, now? She nodded, a flicker of resolve sparking in her eyes. As she scaled the boxes, our fingers intertwined for a moment, a lifeline between us. Her grip was shaky, but we couldn't afford weakness now. The shadows lunged, reaching, grasping, almost clinging like tendrils, sending a wave of dread crashing over us. Jump! I urged as I pulled her up, adrenaline coursing through my veins. With one last scream, Annie leapt. I felt the rush of her weight against me, both of us tumbling through the window. Glass shattered around us, a rain of sparkling shards catching the glint of the moonlight. We landed in a heap on the ground below, the cold, hard earth connecting us back to reality. Get up, I gasped, pulling her to her feet. The shadows loomed above us like a storm cloud, their angry whispers swirling louder. We had made it out, but we weren't safe. What now? Annie panted, her breath hitching as she scanned our surroundings. I could see our options dwindling. The alley stretched out before us again, shadowed and eerie. A nearby street lay ahead, but who knew what chased us? Just run, I exclaimed, but as we dashed down the street, shapes began to materialize before us, from shadows to figures, faces illuminated in the ghostly glow. These weren't just shadows, they were people, countless souls with hollow eyes, caught in an endless cycle of torment. Where are we? Annie whimpered as the ghastly procession advanced, their features twisted in a silent scream. I could feel the tightness in my throat return, a lump of dread. I don't know, but this isn't over. The world around us began to shift, the very fabric of it rumbling as if the ground were quaking beneath our feet. What had we stumbled into? And what did these lost souls want from us? The night was far from over, and the shadows were far from done with their hunt. The chaotic night unfolded like a nightmarish tapestry, shadows mingling with the flickering light of the street lamps. I felt Annie's fingers grip mine tightly as we sprinted past the hollow-eyed souls, their anguished faces haunting my thoughts. Each step felt heavy, as if the weight of the darkness itself was trying to pull us back into its grasp. Annie, stick close, I shouted, panic blooming in my chest. The air crackled with tension, the darkness behind us thrumming like a predator stalking its prey. We turned a corner, and there it was, a massive, crumbling mansion looming before us, shrouded in mystery and dread. "Should we go in there?" Annie dared to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, feeling the impending nearness of the shadows that pushed against my back like a hungry wind. "It's our best chance," I replied, urgency clawing at my throat as I pushed the door open. It creaked ominously, inviting us into its dark maw. Inside, dust danced in the thin rays of moonlight that filtered through cracked windows. The shadows outside shared the architecture of the old mansion, feasting on the darkness that lived in every corner. We stepped inside, heartbeats loud against the silence. "Where are we?" Annie asked, her voice trembling. I scanned the room, searching for answers. Old photographs covered the walls, their frames dusty but intact. Each one held faces that seemed familiar, yet distorted, frozen in some long-buried memory. Then we heard a faint whisper, barely audible. "You shouldn't have come here," it echoed, a soft warning that chilled my bones. "Did you hear that?" I whispered to Annie, wide-eyed. She nodded, swallowing hard. "This place, it feels wrong." The shadows pulsed at the peripheries of the room, and I could feel the weight of their hunger pressing against my chest. "We need to find a way out," I said, moving through the room, my heart pounding louder with each step. Suddenly, from the corner of my eye, I spotted a flicker of movement. The photos shifted, rearranging themselves into a coherent timeline of twisted history. A dark legacy of joy morphed into suffering. The mansion had secrets buried deep within those walls, secrets that might hold the key to our freedom. "Annie, look!" I cried, pointing at a photograph that depicted a gleeful party. In the center stood Jason, an unsettling grin plastered on his face. But the ecstatic expressions of the people around him slowly morphed into agony as darkness crept in around their edges, consuming the joy. "It's him. He did this." I breathed, the revelation sending chills racing down my spine as clarity settled in. He awakened something that was meant to be buried. Annie's eyes widened. "But why? What is this place?" Before I could answer, the mansion trembled, shaking with a resounding growl that echoed through every crevice. The shadows surged forward, and I knew this was our chance. I looked at the photos one last time. We need to confront the truth. It's the only way to break free. With newfound urgency, we moved deeper into the mansion, navigating through the corridors of our intertwined fates. The voices of the lost whispered in the air, urging us to turn back, but we pressed on, propelled by the need to find Jason. At the end of a long hallway, we stumbled upon a dimly lit room. A figure loomed in the center, a silhouette wrapped in darkness. Jason stood there, his face twisted in shadows, eyes glinting with a mix of delight and sorrow. "You shouldn't have come back," he yelled, the shadows swirling around him like a tempest. "You awakened this place. Stop fighting, you don't understand." But I couldn't let fear dictate my actions any longer. "You've trapped all of us, Jason. You need to fix this," I shouted, anger boiling in my veins. He took a step forward, caught between his reality and the abyss that loomed ever closer. "I thought I could control it. I thought no. You romanticized the darkness, Jason. And now it's hunting us. You have to use your power to put an end to this, or we're all doomed." I pleaded, desperation carving its way through the defiance. Annie squeezed my hand, emboldened alongside me. "You have to help us. We are not just pawns in this game." The shadows clawed at Jason, desperately trying to silence him. "No," he screamed, panic rising in his voice. I didn't realize it would end like this. It's awakening." In that moment, an understanding blossomed like flickering light through darkness. He had the power to control the shadows, but the echoes of their past would always haunt him. His hesitation could seal our fates, and as the darkness surged, I took a step closer. "Jason, we trust you. But you must trust yourself, too. You can't let it define who you are," I shouted, my voice cutting through the chaos. A shift appeared in his gaze, confusion battling against despair. I can't." He gasped, pain etched on his features. Annie leaned in, her voice soft but firm. "You have to try. Call on the light inside you. It's still there. The shadows recoiled, a visceral fear radiating from their depths as if they recognized the shifting tides of power. I could see Jason's eyes flicker with determination, the light of resolve illuminating the darkness trapped within his mind. "Stop!" he screamed with newfound authority. The shadows hesitated, freezing in a twisted formation as they sensed the strength carving its way through the murky void. "You are not in charge of me." With one final roar, Jason thrust his hands towards the shadows, channeling the light that pulsed deep within his chest. The darkness writhed, flickering against the blistering blaze erupting from him. I could feel the ground shake beneath me, the shadows gradually receding in the face of that brilliance. It was an eruption, a release, as the terrible darkness was pushed back, banished to the edges of reality. The shadows wailed, echoing through the mansion as they fought against the light that enveloped them. "We did it!" I shouted, hope rising like a phoenix in the midst of despair. Jason collapsed, spent and breathless, as the last tendrils of darkness faded into whispers. I'm free," he whispered, disbelief washing over him like a refreshing tide. Annie and I rushed to his side, pulling him up. "We have to get out of here. Now!" I urged, full of urgency. Together, we stumbled towards the foyer with the light illuminating our path, the oppressive darkness evaporating behind us. We burst through the stained glass doors and into the open air, gulping in the clear night breeze, our hearts racing with the sweet taste of freedom. "Let us go home," Annie said, determination settling in her voice. And as we walked away from the shadows that had haunted us, the rising sun bathed our faces in warm light. Hope was rekindled in our hearts, painting the horizon orange and gold. With a heavy but relieved heart, I realized whatever darkness dared to confront us, we would face it together, side by side. This was our beginning, no longer trapped, no longer isolated in our fears. We were stronger than before, empowered by the light of those who fight and break free from what binds them. Life would never be the same, but we emerged resilient, ready to seize the day, and I knew this was only the first chapter of many more we would write together. So, if you've enjoyed this wild ride and want to stay with us for more thrilling stories, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your participation makes all the difference, so let us connect and keep the magic alive.